I'm James Robertson, and this is my wife, Charlotte. We want to welcome you all to the city cemetery today. We're two of the pioneer settlers of Nashville. I was on a long hunt out here several times in the 1770s. I'd heard about the Great French Lick and the mineral springs out here and how it attracted bear and deer and elk and all sorts of animals. And so I decided to come out here and explore. And it looked so rich. In 1779, I persuaded our neighbors up at Fort Patrick Henry, a bunch of them, to follow me through the Cedar Barrens of Kentucky and to come down here in the winter of 1779 and stake claim to this land. The Cumberland was frozen. It was such a cold winter, and we just walked across the ice and up the bluff. It looked like a good defensible position. That's where we decided to settle and build Fort Nashboro. Well, our trip had been hard, but the women, children, and property, bless your heart, you had such a hard time. Tell them the story.
Well, in their defense, they thought they were sending us a little bit easier route than they took. Unfortunately, it turned out to be the opposite. We were traveling on flatboats, a flotilla of flatboats coming down the Holston River, down the Tennessee River, up the Cumberland and Ohio rivers. And when I say up, I mean pushing our boats with long poles up the Ohio and up the Cumberland rivers against the currents. I spent many hours pushing because it was all hands on deck. We had Colonel Donaldson who led the flotilla, and he has a wonderful journal if you get the opportunity to read it. A lot of exciting things and sad things happened on that journey as well. We were attacked by Indians at every opportunity, especially from Moccasin Bend, near what you call Chattanooga now, and sometimes with flaming arrows, which don't bode well with wooden boats. We also had a boat that developed smallpox, and we had to quarantine that boat. We suffered from hunger and exhaustion because many nights we were afraid to come into shore for being attacked, and replenishing our stores of food. We had shoals that were so shallow that we had to offload things to get our boats across. And then the next thing you know, we'd be in some sort of whirlpool or rapids where sunk or almost sunk our boats. So it was a traumatic trip. I've often been glad that history doesn't record my first words to the general here when I got off the boat, because honestly, they just weren't fitting to be recorded.
She's a good Christian woman.
But we were ecstatic to see them. And our son Jonathan, who was 10 at the time they came across the mountains and herded the sheep across the mountains. I was so proud of him. But it took us a long time to make a life here that was safe and secure in the Nashboro area.
We almost lost poor little Jonathan and a couple of other members of our family to Indian scalping. And I knew a recipe for dealing with that. You bore holes through the skull, matter comes out and forms a black crust over the top of the head, and in time it starts to sort of heal up and peel off, and you'll get some skin growing back over there. It's not pleasant, but we can get you through it.
But it did save our son Jonathan during what we call the Battle of the Bluff, which was one of the Indian attacks. The men had gone out hunting, and in the canebrake. Tell them about that, because
there were a little over a dozen of us out hunting through the canebrake. You call it Broadway now. And it was so thick down there you could hide buffalo in it and not even find them. Well, there were about 100 Native Americans waiting for us down in there. And as they started to attack us, Charlotte heard all of that noise. And what did you do, dear heart?
I let out the dogs. The dogs who had been trained especially to attack Indians. And our hero dogs went out, ran the Indians, scattered them so that the men were able to make it back to the fort, and we were able to defend ourselves. There was a lot of sadness that day. As he said, Jonathan was scalped, but we did nurse him back to health, and he grew up to be a fine man and a lawyer here in Nashville. We did lose two of our sons, though. James Jr. and Peyton were killed. We also lost some of James's brothers, two of his brothers, John and Mark. And that type of attack went on here at Fort Nashville for about 15 years before things settled down and we were able to make peace.
We want to thank you all for coming to the City Cemetery today. You're going to hear many other stories of valor and scary stories, and we're happy that you are here with us today, and enjoy yourselves.
And we just want you to reflect a moment when you drive on one of our streets, Charlotte Avenue, or James Robertson Parkway.
Or visit her town, Charlotte, Tennessee.
Or as he constantly reminds me, I may have a town, but he has a whole county named Robertson County. So thank you for coming today.
My death notice in the Nashville newspaper told readers that in the summer of my beauty, I, Sarah Ann Gray Walker, had been suddenly stricken down. I was the daughter of Dr. Young A. Gray of Florence, Alabama, and only 28 years old when I died on March 16, 1845. My husband, John W. Walker, would make certain that I was remembered when he commissioned famed architect William Strickland to design my beautiful monument here at the City Cemetery. Strickland was famous for his work in the Greek Revival style in Philadelphia and here in Nashville, where he later incorporated the Egyptian Revival style and was buried in the walls of the Tennessee State Capitol upon his death. I'm glad I'm not buried around all those politicians at the Capitol. In the July 1846 issue of the Orthopolitan, a publication edited by a fellow City Cemetery resident, Wilkins Tannehill, who you'll meet later on in the tour, Strickland described my monument as purely elegant, constructed of pure white marble from Baltimore. The lacrimal vase is an exact copy of vases found in the ruins of Pompeii. In ancient times, they would hold water or wine, or in miniature versions, hold the tears of mourners. They're very popular in the headstone iconography here at the City Cemetery, where you may see them draped with a shroud of mourning, or at the top of a monument. Isn't mine very pretty? My husband, John W. Walker, was a very successful merchant, and I loved him. Newspaper advertisements on the same day as my obituary said that 50 boxes of Jesse Hare's superior honeydew tobacco and 50 boxes of fresh raisins had just been received and were for sale in his store. He carried only the finest merchandise. Well, can you believe that only a year after I died, that man married Martha Cheatham over in Robertson County? I bet she helped him cry for me. I probably wasn't even cold before she showed up with a casserole to console him in his grief. What's worse is that 4 years later, the U.S. Census in Davidson County listed his and Martha's real estate at $130,000. In 1870, he was listed as a retired merchant with his real estate at a handsome $265,000. Nevertheless, my monument is a reminder of the lady I once was. Thank you for coming to see me, and I hope you enjoy your tour.
My name is Alfred Hughes. I'm many things. I'm a politician, a churchman. Most importantly, I'm a teacher, an educator, or if you would, a pedagogue. I was born in 1808. My father was Andrew Hume, who was a Presbyterian minister who emigrated here from Scotland. I was raised as a Presbyterian and received a classical education. Upon my graduation, I became a teacher myself and taught my entire career. I was superintendent of the Presbyterian Sunday School and taught in Nashville at a classical academy, a private school, that was where I spent my career. In those days, there were very limited opportunities for education. There was no public school system per se in the early part of the 19th century. You went to a day school in a one-room building with a teacher who may or may not have an education. and you paid X cents per month to the teacher to teach your children. You didn't pay your X cents per month, well then, but the kid didn't get to go to school, which made the kids happy, but made the parents unhappy. The alternative was a private academy where a tuition was paid. One such was the Western Military Institute here in Nashville. If you go up on the Howard School campus over there, there's a gray limestone building. That's the former Western Military Institute. It was headed up by Bushrod Johnson, who was buried over there, and he became a Confederate general. Then you had something like the Nashville Female Academy, which was noteworthy for being the locale of the only bathtub in the city of Nashville. Female sensitivities being what they are. In the fall of 1852, the Board of Aldermen, I was a member of the Board of Aldermen, which was the Board of Aldermen was the governing body of the city, directed that I go visit cities which had successful public education programs. As you're in the north, I went to Boston, I went to New York, I went to Philadelphia, I went to other cities, came back, prepared to report, and it was tumultuously received by a body of citizens at the old Oddfellows Hall here in Nashville in the fall of 1852. The city Board of Aldermen immediately authorized the construction of a school located at the corner of what you call today 8th Avenue North and Broadway, and funds were authorized to spend for it. Unfortunately, I picked this moment to die. I died of what we called consumption back in the 19th century. In the 20th, we would call it, 21st, we would call it tuberculosis. Standard palliative for consumption in those days was to have tobacco smoke and take tobacco smoke in your lung to clear it out. Go for it. The school was completed in 1855. And in my memory, it was named the Hume High School and Grammar School. It was grades 1 through 12. Almost immediately, other schools were erected, the Howard School, the Hines School, the Tarbox School. The Civil War was very disruptive to everything in Middle Tennessee, and including public education. But when the war was over, the demand continued, and so it was felt at that time that they should build a separate high school. Remember, Hume School is both grammar school and high school. And so land was purchased at the corner of 6th Avenue North and Broadway. And a former Union Army mess hall was bought, dismantled, and rebuilt on the site as the new high school. And it was called the Fogg School, after Francis Fogg, who's buried up there. He was the first chairman of the school board in Nashville. Two good schools stood side by side until 1912, when they were torn down and replaced by a new school, the name of which escapes me. Help. Hume Fogg High School. And it stands to this day, a beautiful building. I'm Alfred Hume, and I'm considered the father of public education here in the city of Nashville. Thank you very much for your time. Does anybody need to have their knuckles wrapped? Anybody need to clear their lungs?
Good day, everybody. I want you to know that you're listening to the greatest jockey that ever rode a horse in this whole country. That's right, even Andrew Jackson knew how good I was. And I'll tell you about some of my races in just a second. But first of all, I was born as a slave in Africa. I came here as a slave in Africa, from Africa. And they said that I was a prince over there. And you know what? I actually believe them, because I was a prince of jockeys right here in America. I was brought here probably around 1780s. What year, I don't know, but I think I was born in 1781. But nevertheless, I was taken to South Carolina, which was the horse racing capital of the whole world. I mean, they'd been racing horses there for 100 years. Everybody was riding horses, even the slaves. And I was no exception. At the age of 13, I was barely 4 feet 6 inches tall at the time and weighed less than 100 pounds. But I hung around those racetracks and I learned how to ride to win, which I nearly always did. I had a winning reputation. Everybody wanted me on their horse. And so, being a slave, I didn't mind so much because I was well known, well respected, and I got plenty of money from tips and gifts. I rode a horse up in Kentucky at a race for a preacher over in Gallatin who owned that horse. But old Andrew Jackson, he went out and spent a lot of money on a horse, a prize horse that he got up in Virginia. Well, there was a lot of betting, a lot of heavy betting that day at that race, and they were betting against me. But you know what? I beat that pack-a-lay. Made old Andrew Jackson real mad, too. I sure would like to know how much money he lost for my winning. But you know, later on that day, I raced that same mare, and a lot of other men went broke when I won. I got traded around a lot. But you know, I didn't mind that, as long as I could be somebody's jockey. You know, I got tips. I got $12 to $15 a year payoffs. But those men that I rode for, they got thousands of dollars a year for my winning. I rode another horse by the name of Maria. I called her Sweet Maria. She was such a sweet horse, and she was owned by Jesse Haney. So some people called her Haney's Maria. She was owned by Jesse Haney over in Hartsville. They had a big old horse farm up there in Hartsville, and it was the place where they raced horses and they bred thoroughbreds. Well, Maria was one of the Jesse Haney's horses, and I rode that horse. But before that race, old Andrew Jackson walks up to me and he says, "I don't want you spitting your tobacco juice in my horse's eye when he gets ready to pass you." I said, "Your horse has never even come close enough for me to spit in their eyes." Well, he didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. But he knew how good I was, and it was true. Well, I sure would like to know how much money my winning caused him to lose. Folks, that's the end of my presentation as far as Simon is concerned, but thank you. I will say this. Simon died in one of the many cholera epidemics that swept through Nashville during that time period. And in his obituary in 1833, it didn't state whether or not he was a slave still or a free person of color. So we don't know for sure whether or not he purchased his freedom with some of the winnings that he made. But we're almost sure he did. And also, people such as Simon who are buried here in the National City Cemetery, we're still researching to confirm their actual burial at this location. And some of them we will never know for sure because of the deterioration. As you walk through, you see the deterioration on some of the graves, tombstones, caused by the weather. But nevertheless, thank you again so much for coming out to be in with Simon the jockey.
My name's John Hill, and like my friends here behind me, I I ended up in the Tennessee State Penitentiary. It was the 28th of December in 1831. It did not make for a particularly happy New Year. That wretched place had been open about 1 year when I had the misfortune of walking through the big gate. Gate through a 4-foot thick, 20-foot high stone wall. I was prisoner number 36 in one of 200 cells. Those cells were 3.5 feet by 7.5 feet by 7 feet tall. Imagine, 3.5 by 7.5, 7 feet deep. Remind you of anything else around here? Some might think that's kind of ironic, but I'm not so sure. I was born in Ohio, trained as a cabinet maker. And like most of us tradesmen, I went about and followed the work, which is how I came to be here in Tennessee. I was fairly good at working with my hands, and I've made many a beautiful piece in my day, if I say so myself. But I never considered myself to be a real criminal type. So, how do you think I ended up in the penitentiary? Well, I made a very poor choice to try and help my friend James Powell break out of the Fayette County Jail down by Memphis. And suffice to say, the operation went poorly. And soon after, I was tried, found guilty, and sent to that darkest of facilities out on Church Street. Back then, the penitentiary was only a couple of miles from downtown. And in the pen, there's not much interest in reform or our physical well-being. Not so much as the financial profitability of the institution itself. The water was foul, sanitation was sickening, the accommodations were just downright miserable. We were made to do hard labor in the prison shops and weren't compensated at all for it. But it was still better than being locked in those tiny cells day and night. There was a strict silence policy in the prison. There was no talking allowed, not to each other, especially not to the guards. No visitors, no newspapers, no stories to entertain ourselves. But there were plenty of rules and harsh penalties if you broke those rules. Say, up to 30 lashes with a leather strap, or getting locked in a metal box and set out to bake in the sun, or 30 days in the hole, which was a even darker, more dungeon-like cell than the regular ones. And then the most severe punishment? Time. Time added to your sentence. Time for you to waste away while the world passed by. Now, if you did have the misfortune of passing away in prison, your name would be listed in the Nashville paper, and your family may or may not see it and know what happened to you. That happened to a lot of my 19 contemporaries there. They all died one horrid, stifling June in 1833. Most of them were common farm laborers, locked up for petty theft, like Jackson Thomas, the prisoner number 32. He was the first to die on June 9th. He had served 552 days of a 3-year sentence. Most of the others died about a week later, between the 14th and the 17th. And then John Delk was the last one to succumb on June 20th. John had a wife and 9 children out in Campbell County above Knoxville. One day he decided to steal a hog, and he got a year for it. But John couldn't stay out of trouble inside, and that year turned into a life sentence. He died during the 413th lonely night he spent in that tiny cell. He was prisoner number 50. John Dugan is back there. He was a cooper from North Carolina. You know what a cooper does? They make barrels. And barrels were like the cardboard boxes of our day. He was convicted of manslaughter. Served 870 days of a 10-year sentence. George Rogers is back there. He was a shoemaker, convicted of horse stealing, which back then was considered a very serious crime. And there's Beasley Barbie. He was a tailor. He was convicted of malicious shooting. William McCracken is back there. He was a school teacher and a peddler, and he was convicted of forgery. But perhaps the most surprising and the eldest of our lot, at 58 years old, was the Reverend Hugh Moore. He was a Baptist preacher for 30 years, but he was overcome by the temptation to embezzle a pension fund that had been set aside for old soldiers. Thou shouldn't have stolen. In 1833, half of the people buried in this cemetery died of cholera. 174 souls. And in the penitentiary, 1 out of 4 of every prisoner died of cholera or other maladies. But somehow I survived. I made it out. I did my time and I went back out that big gate. I tell you, it cost me 5 years of life, 1,836 days, and 1,836 miserable, desperately lonely nights. Sometimes I'm overcome just thinking how fortunate I was to get out at all. We were all just people. Flawed, yes, but aren't we all flawed in some way? Some people may believe in the possibility of human perfection, but I'm more skeptical. Some people say that a sinful life can bring about a premature end, but I don't know that a life of good works can stave off that end. Eventually, we all return to the soil, or maybe we're picked up by the wind or washed down a stream to the great oceans. But one thing we can hope for is to be fairly and justly remembered. I thank you all so much for coming today and helping me remember my 19 friends. It really means a lot to all of us. Thank you.
My name is Wilkins Tannehill, and I've been asked to speak with you today. I feel very honored to do so, and I'm even more touched for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm not sure that I would describe my story as particularly remarkable as some of my neighbors might their own, but it was a good life, full of ups and downs and forks in the road, probably much like your own. I was born in 1787, Pittsburgh, PA. My father and my mother's father were Revolutionary War officers. By example, taught me to be a great supporter of this country and its founding principles of individual liberty in conjunction with the Union of the States, and above all, the broadly educated, self-made man. Now, I'm father of 7 children. My dear wife, Eliza, she sadly died January 1843, just shy of being 54 years old. We were married for 33 of those years, and she was a terrific, devoted, intelligent woman, my closest counselor. As a young man, I was employed in our extended family salt works, which eventually brought me here to Nashville in 1810. Having become prosperous with the salt, I opened my own grocery store here in Nashville, and then a second store in Pulaski. Early on, I joined the Nashville Library Company. In 1813, marked my formal entrance into the city's many intellectual activities. I spent the remainder of my years focused on writing and publishing great and important thoughts. 1813 also saw my having been made trustee of Cumberland College and later the University of Nashville. And on April 25th, I was the first initiate of the Masonic Cumberland Lodge Number 8, a lodge which Andrew Jackson was later admitted to. Masonic ideas and fellowship are very important to me, and I care a great deal about that institution. In 1817, I was elected Grand Master, a position which I held 7 different times. With the exception of 1822, when Jackson was Grand Master, and 1825, when I was Mayor of Nashville. I was also Grand High Priest in 1829 and served my final term as Grand Master in 1841. During this period, I published books on world history, literature, and a Masonic manual, which was the book in use for half a century. There's a portrait of me done by the noted artist Washington Cooper. And in that painting, I am pictured as I am here today in my Masonic collar. Now, these are typically not worn in public and are most often buried with my brother Masons. I have been referred to, arguably, as the greatest Mason Tennessee has ever produced. This is possible, as I have held high office substantially more than any other. I am a supporter of temperance societies, founding member of the Nashville Historic Society, and an early, vocal advocate for the establishment of a teacher's college here. But most of all, I'm a publisher, editor, and essayist. I'm a great believer, supporter, and promoter of science, and an impassioned proponent of the educated man, someone with broad, wide-ranging tastes and interests. I consider one of my master accomplishments to be the Portfolio, a monthly journal, the content of which divides equally between Masonic topics and literature, with zero politics. I wrote, edited, and published the Portfolio for 3 wonderful years. Now I'm so proud of this collection of original and selected works that's embodied in these bound volumes. It was my endeavor to combine useful instruction with rational amusement, and to inspire a taste and desire for that general knowledge which renders the mind free from the prejudices engendered by ignorance. I would like to briefly read you the title of a diverse and representative selection of these articles. Advice to Young Ladies, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, Astronomical Discoveries, Backwoods Weddings, Christmas in Rome, Coffee and Tobacco, Conversion of the Anglo-Saxons, Dueling, The Duplicity of Charles I, Geology, Fossil Remains in Sacred History, Hebrew Poetry, Indian Faith, Friendship, and Political Institutions, The Literary Man and the Warrior, Norway and its Government, Outdoor Preaching, Public Education, Red Hair, Religious Wars, River God of the Potomac, social and political condition of the United States, the study of antiquities, the Union, it must be preserved, and wives. Again, I wrote a great many of these essays, but others I reprinted because I felt that they were just too significant not to share. I'd have loved to continue this service longer, but alas, my failing eyesight and numbers of unpaid subscriptions made the work unsustainable. My last major undertaking was the Merchant's Library and Reading Room, which was a subscription library downtown in 1849. I knew that Nashville would soon be one of the most important towns in the Western Valley, and I also clearly foresaw the war between the states and the passing of the South's feudal order. I oppose war as the ultimate waste of our most precious ultimate resource. On June 2nd, 1858, I passed from this earth blind while living in the home of my son-in-law, W.T. Barry, one of Nashville's very successful printers and its most successful bookseller. My funeral was held at First Presbyterian Church downtown, and my brother Masons laid me here to rest beside my beloved wife. I want to thank you again for coming today and let you know how very much it means to all of us that you've taken the time to come and visit.
Thank you for coming to hear about me. I was raised up north in New England by wealthy family members who gave me an excellent education. I learned French, took voice lessons, and auditioned for George L. White and the Fisk Jubilee Singers, where I was promptly hired to sing contralto. Do you know how old I was? Just 13. Mr. White named us Jubilee after the year of Jubilee, found in the book of Leviticus, chapter 25. In the Bible, the year of Leviticus came once every 50 years and represented the new worldly beginning in the eyes of our Lord. We would travel the world performing, showcasing our racial heritage. We performed in front of kings, queens, President Grant, and many others. Queen Victoria was so impressed with us that she commissioned a floor-to-ceiling portrait of us that still hangs in Jubilee Hall today. In just 7 years, we raised $150,000 for our beloved Fisk. I would soon move to Cleveland, Ohio, where I worked with youth groups. One day, someone asked me, what was it like to travel the U.S. as an African American after the Civil War? I said, shall I tell you about the many times they turned us away from hotels because it took God more pain to make our people than others? Is it because he stopped to paint us and curl our hair that we have to suffer for those added attentions that he bestowed upon us? We would fight many of these slights in song. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I would join his choir on August 8th, 1935. And every year, Fisk comes here to remember Ella Shepherd Moore and myself on October 6th. And that was the day that the Fisk Jubilee Singers set out to change the world. Thank you so much.
Welcome. This is the 20th anniversary of the Nashville City Cemetery Living History Tour. I'm portraying Felix Grundy, who was a famous politician and criminal lawyer. I was born in 1777 in Berkeley, Virginia, which is now West Virginia. We later moved to Pennsylvania and settled in Bardstown, Kentucky, where I read law and was admitted to the state bar and practiced law there in 1779. I helped draft the Kentucky Second Constitution, served there twice as state representative in the Court of Appeals, and served as Chief Justice in 1807. I then moved to Nashville, where I took up the practice of law again, and I was elected here twice to the House of Representatives, where I served twice. Also in my lifetime, I was a senator from the state of Tennessee. In 1838, I was appointed United States Attorney General under Martin Van Buren. During the War of 1812, I so voraciously supported the war that some referred to it as Madison, Grundy, and the devil. With my blue eyes, my wit, eloquence, and intellect, I was able to build a rapport with jurors, and it's said of the 185 murder defendants that I represented, that only one went to the gallows. I was a political reformer as well, with Jeffersonian egalitarian values. I was for minimum taxation or no taxation, small government, equality and justice for everybody, and judicial supremacy to carry out those values. I had a very complex relationship with President Jackson, both as a state senator and when he served as president. I was also mentor to President James K. Polk, and he purchased Grundy Place, which stood on a prominent hill in downtown Nashville. Upon his death in 1849 from the cholera epidemic here in Nashville, at the invitation of my family, he was buried here in our lot behind me for a period of 9 months before his family had him moved to Polk Place in downtown Nashville. I died in 1840, followed by my wife Anne in 1847. Our granddaughter moved us in 1890, along with 7 other family members, to her lot at Mount Olivet. Just last year in October, in 2018, the Nashville City Cemetery, along with a group of the Grundy descendants, had our remains, myself, my wife Ann, our daughter Felicia, and slave Ambrose Grundy, who upon his death in 1875 requested to be buried next to me, was returned here to our lot behind me. I thank you folks for being here today to support the Nashville City Cemetery. Thank you.
I am Mary Norvell Walker, and I was born in 1802 in Garrard County, Kentucky. When I was 21, I married James Walker, who immigrated from Scotland to America and found his way to Nashville, where he established an insurance company. I always had a delicate constitution and was an invalid for much of my life. However, my frailty was but of my brawn, and I was certainly not feeble-minded. I eagerly exercised my mind and kept it nimble such that Father found me quite intelligent, and my friends always said I was full of stimulating conversation.
And certainly everybody, Sister Mary, thought you were that way.
Thank you, brother.
My name is Joseph Norvell, and of course I am her brother. Our father, Lipscomb Norvell, was a Virginian by birth. He was a lieutenant in the Continental Army in what was called the Continental Line. He was in battles, Monmouth, Brandywine, Trenton, and then he was in the South at Charleston, South Carolina in 1780. The British laid siege to the city, and the city surrendered, and at the time of the surrender, then our father spent the last 3 years of the war as a prisoner of war of the British.
For his heroism, he was given substantial land grants, which enabled him to move our family westward into the Kentucky frontier, which is where Joseph and our 4 brothers and I were all raised. Father was also initiated into the Society of Cincinnati, founded in 1783, to foster friendship, uphold the new ideals of our new nation, and to encourage civic leadership amongst the officers who'd fought under General Washington for the Patriot cause.
After I became an adult, I soon became a Mason, and then shortly thereafter I was elected as the Grand Master of the Grand Nashville chapter. My portrait was painted, and in fact it's still there over on Broadway in the big building that you'll see, the Masonic building on Broadway. I've never seen that portrait myself, but I've heard about it. My brother Moses and I were newspapermen, and Brother Moses and I started a newspaper called the Nashville Whig. The Nashville Whig is now, after a number of changes, has become the Nashville Tennessean.
My husband James and I belong to the Disciples of Christ Church. And in addition to our fundamentalist faith, which adhere to a very strict interpretation of the Bible, our own personal convictions prevented us from owning slaves. So husband James would hire freed blacks to work for us. We built a beautiful home here in Nashville where we raised our 4 children. We had 3 sons and a daughter. And our eldest son, William, was quite the student and became very accomplished as a physician, a lawyer, journalist, a duelist, and a famous mercenary.
Yes, nephew William. He was a very smart boy, as I remember, as a young man, but he became known in later years as the gray-eyed man of destiny, and he became, I think you would say today, fixated on going to Latin America and taking over governments. They normally just sent him back home after these failures. However, he did become president of Nicaragua for about 2 years and became the only native Nashvilleian who was ever head of a state. This was in the era of what was called Manifest Destiny, which is many Americans wanted to expand through territories and colonies. And a big proponent of that was President James K. Polk, who spent about 6 months living up there at the Grundy lot right after he died.
Well, I died in 1852 at the age of 50, and it is a blessing that I never knew of the exploits of our son, William. And I'll let Joseph tell you why.
In Honduras, young nephew William ran out of luck. And rather than send him home, as other governments had done, the Hondurans just executed him in front of a firing squad. So he is now buried down there. He was killed in 1860, and he's buried there. His marker is still there. And speaking of death, that reminds me that one of the proudest things that ever happened to me was I became a pallbearer for Andrew Jackson. There were 6 pallbearers chosen about a year and a half before I died myself. And one of them was Dr. John Shelby, who's buried out here somewhere. And when we were chosen as pallbearers, but we don't know why, because there was no real connection between any of us. But we all knew the president, but we weren't really close to him. But anyway, it's a proud moment in my life that that happened.
Brother Joseph, I'm trying to recall, besides Father, how many Revolutionary War veterans now rest with us here?
Well, Father was the first, and there are 8 since then. So there are now 9 Revolutionary War veterans buried here in this 22 acres city cemetery. It's been here since 1822, and many people consider to be Nashville's preeminent outdoor history museum.
We thank you all for coming and supporting it today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm William Carroll. I was born near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1788. My father, a wealthy, prominent businessman in the area, sent me to Nashville in 1810 at the age of 22. I was given a letter of introduction to Andrew Jackson, written by Albert Gallatin, the Secretary of the Treasury for the United States. I soon founded a nail foundry and a business store, which helped support this growing city. With the War of 1812 looming, I joined the Nashville militia, soon being elected its captain. When we became a part of the Tennessee Volunteers, General Jackson named me the brigade inspector. In the summer of 1813, months before the Creek War, we were ordered back to Nashville via the Natchez Trace. It was on the Natchez Trace that General Jackson gave up his horse so that 6 soldiers may ride, resulting in giving him the nickname Old Hickory. On that long, hot journey, I was challenged to a duel by a subordinate officer. Back in Nashville, another officer, Jesse Benton, accepted the duel on his behalf. Andrew Jackson reluctantly agreed to serve as my second. During the duel, Officer Benton fired first, striking my thumb. When I returned fire, I shot the squatting officer in the buttocks, resulting in harming his pride and honor. His brother, the future Missouri Senator, Thomas Hart Benton, became enraged at General Jackson, leading to a gunfight at the Nashville Inn, in which General Jackson was shot in the arm. Soon after, I distinguished myself in the Creek campaign and was appointed the Major General of the Tennessee State Militia, when Andrew Jackson was appointed to the same position for the United States Army. In late 1814, when General Jackson ordered us south to help defend the town of New Orleans, I disobeyed his command and did not send my troops via the overland route, the Natchez Trace. I instead sent them via rivers, training them as we went. When we arrived just in time in January of 1815 to defeat the British at the Battle of New Orleans. The Tennessee Volunteers formed the center line in which we would ever be cemented as the volunteer state. In 1819, I brought Nashville's first steamboat, the General Jackson, to the city. In the same year, I became bankrupt due to the financial panic of 1819. I decided at that point to make my name in Tennessee politics. I would be elected in 1821 to the first of 3 consecutive 2-year terms as governor. In 1827, when Sam Houston resigned as governor of Tennessee, I yet again won 3 more consecutive terms. I would be Tennessee's longest-serving governor, serving for a total of 12 years. I would be known for reforming the penal system, getting rid of debtor's prison, flogging posts and pillories. I would help promote public education and would create a financial system that would last until the American Civil War. When I died in 1844, at the age of 56, I would be interned here at the Nashville City Cemetery. Buried right over there. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.